I'm here with Charlie Alcock, who is a legend.
Whatever.
In the youth ministry.
Bro, you're the
movement.
legend, man.
No. In the Wesleyan Church.
Well.
Charlie, tell us a little bit about like where you're at, what you do, and we'll go from there.
So my whole life has been youth ministry, and we just started kicking it off in college and traveling and doing youth camps, and that's what I've been doing ever since. And so it doesn't matter what the location is, whether it's, my first job was in Virginia. I was in Indiana. A big chunk was in San Diego at Skyline. And then...
Yeah, I always thought you were a California guy because you just came because I think when I first got to know you, were in San Diego and you seemed like a California guy.
Well, it's kind of funny. It's like maybe that's where I don't know. It's good days.
Right.
Those are good times. But had great days in Virginia, great days in Indiana. And then loved my time there. And it was from that experience that I ended up coming to IWU as a youth ministry professor. So I'm a youth ministry professor at Indiana Wesleyan.
And how long have you been there doing that?
20 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then that's where we started this thing called youth ministry events. And that's what, the Fusion, the Never Too Young, summer ministry teams are all now a part of that. Because what we call Fusion now was a youth conference that they had done forever.
Right.
And then it just kind of morphed and changed over the years. So all that's a part of what we do. Now, there's another thing we do called Examine Camp. It's a grant, so we have 2 camps that we do ourselves on campus. And students get college credit for it.
Yeah.
100% paid.
Yeah. And you are, do I have this right? You're in charge of Follow, the youth conference for next year?
Yes, it's kind of crazy, but way back in the day, you do different little things and then started doing like the sessions and things 25 years ago and you just serve whoever the leader is.
Right.
And so I've always been, back in the day we had those area directors.
Yes, I remember.
So I was the area director for the West, because that was everybody from the Mississippi over. So I directed those conventions, that one, but like it's always been, managing the main sessions or whatever and it just happens that my dear friend, Zach Coffin.
Yeah, I was just talking to him a couple weeks ago. He was on the podcast a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I've been so blessed to have everybody in that seat has been a good friend. And Scott Simmons, good friend. Ross DeMerchant, good friend. I mean, so it's like going way back. So as Zach is on to that new season of life and Santise Beatty is now coming in as the director of youth ministry for the denomination, there's that gap between Zach and Santise where they didn't know what was going to happen. They asked me to do the convention because we're a year away.
Right.
So yes, we're going to lead that, but really it's not me, it's going to be us.
Right.
You have to lead it.
Right.
We need all of Canada there. I mean, it's like, so what I'm going to do is get a bunch of people together and say, we need to lead this.
Right.
So my job is to get the people together.
Right. Yeah, and you're good at that.
Well, we'll do it. It's for, man, we did a video, and I can send it to you, like in a session last night here at the gathering, where it wasn't the classic just showing the kids. I started out in 1970 naming all the names of all the leaders of the Wesleyan Church who all came up through a youth convention.
Right.
So, I mean, if we forsake this next generation, if we forsake the now generation, we lose.
Right.
And so, and the whole thing was like, they loved you, people cared for you, now we have to care for them.
Right, right.
So we need a bunch of people to jump in. I never had a youth pastor, bro. We didn't have youth pastors back then.
Right.
My pastor would say, okay, you kids, here's that van.
Jump in.
Oh, yeah. It's like, hey, don't put your feet on the left side of the floor because it goes through, Right. When it was raining on our way to the conventions, dude, the water would come up through the floor. You know what I'm saying? There was a rug they'd put over to keep the water.
But those were the best times, right?
Yeah. Got to do what you got to do, right?
All right. So, hey, thanks for taking the time to chat today.
All right.
I really appreciate it, man.
But I'm not leaving without saying this, Mike. You have been loved and respected for a long time. You have been one of my heroes. When I think about that crew, it's like, man. I remember walking in, it's like, wow, that's Mike McNeil, man.
No.
Yes!
I appreciate the affirmation.
Well, it's true, so I'm not making it up.
Yeah. So, and I've respected and kind of admired you for a long time, and just I think probably more than anything, it's the longevity, right? Like it's like being committed to a vision and just
Yes.
following it through, like
Yep,
in the long
absolutely.
term, right? So, yeah.
Thank you,
awesome.
bro.
All right, see ya.
I love it.
I'm going to leave this part in.
All right, that's fine. I don't care. It's good to see you. Hey, I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Hey, I'm here with Chris Swartout. And Chris,
What's happening, man?
Hey, it's good to see you.
Likewise.
Tell us where you do ministry, where you're pastoring at,
All
what
right.
you do.
Hey, so I'm in Rapid City, South Dakota. I work at a church called Fountain Springs, and Pastor David Canan is the lead pastor there. I serve as location campus, whatever word you use in your lingo. Like
Right.
My area, my location is where I do kind of the, man, let's just say the down and dirty, right? Like I don't have to preach every Sunday, but I get to love on people, connect with people, and help them take that next step. But just kind of be present in their lives.
Yeah, and we've been on a few mission
Yeah,
trips
we have.
together, and I've seen your ability with people and
Thanks,
connecting
man.
with all different kinds of
Yeah.
people. So that's awesome. If you had to give, like, if there was like a young adult out there considering ministry, like what piece of advice would you give them? If you had to pass on like one word of wisdom to somebody who's considering ministry.
Man, I think there's two aspects. That's such a loaded question because you can spend a lot of time on that, right? Like, I connect with guys like this. Like, I'm not trying to like puff you up, but do ministry right now before you even get into ministry. Find out what you love and what you enjoy and what kind of fills your tank when you get in those moments. Like go on a missions trip or serve in your local church. If you want to be in ministry, ask those tough questions of the leaders that are above you. Like, hey, what could I do to help out? Or what things take place that are going to help benefit me if I'm walking into this? Because you got to be stretched, right? I think to me, that's one of the scariest things about ministry right now is just, hey, I'm just going to dive in. I'm going to go ministry. Hold on. What have you done? What have you been stretched to do? What have you tried out that you love or don't love? And I think, and we got to be a culture of serving before we can dive into serving for the rest of our lives. And secondly, you got to have a call. If you don't have a call to ministry, man, seek that out. Maybe God's leading you to be a benefit to someone else it is. But if he's calling you to ministry, don't deny it. Get after it.
All right, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Mike.
And Melinda, tell us about your ministry in Boston.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
And so just the Lord called us in 2018 actually to move to Boston, the Northeast District of the Wesleyan Church. I had been praying for 10 years for a church plant in the city. There was no Wesleyan presence officially in a church.
And Boston's kind of known as one of those hard cities too, right?
It's an interesting, challenging, beautiful place.
Right.
And so we prayed. We went on a prayer tour with our family, and the Lord led us to, long story short, is how we ended up there, but God has been faithful. So in 2019, we launched Awaken City Church, but we really, from the beginning, we were saying, God, we want to be a multiplying church, we want to be part of the multiplication movement and the denomination, and so what's called planted pregnant with another church planter who actually graduated from Kingswood, Amanda Oikel, Pastor Amanda Oikel, and she was a resident with us. We are a co-founder of a residency program called Global Cities Residency or Network, Global Cities Network, which intentionally plants churches in the global cities of the world, and we are honored to and believe in next-gen leaders in any way that we can empower them. So she was there with us for 2 years, and then she now has a church in Fenway. We're in the neighborhood of Jamaica Plain in Boston. She's in Fenway, which is where the Red Sox play.
Right.
Pretty cool for her. She lives right down the street from that, which is awesome. And they have public church, and then also they've just opened public coffee, which is right now it's right next door to our storefront in Jamaica Plain. But I believe God will continue to use that idea of like what she would call as proximity spaces.
Yeah, so like a third space.
A third space for people to be seen and known. And so super proud of what God is doing through her. And then another resident that Amanda and I both shared is Haven Rhoda, who is also a graduate of Kingswood.
Yeah, Haven was actually in the program that I teach at.
Oh, awesome.
And an outreach program at Kingswood.
And Haven's been super instrumental. So when she was she just finished her residency with us, and she was basically very instrumental in rebranding our outreach program. It's called Deep Roots Ministry now, and seek to really look at the whole person, physically, emotionally, spiritually. How can we, what she would say, not be Band-Aid people, people,
Right.
but look at the systemic root of things that need to be changed, and how can we come alongside individual people, neighborhoods, the city to see transformation. And so Haven's been crucially important in that, and her role in the city with us. And she is now, she's continuing, she's a barista at Public Coffee, kind of a pastor shepherd there, works at Public Church as well, also has, all of us are co-vocational, we have multiple
Right, right.
jobs, because when you live in a very expensive city like Boston, we do that. But she will serve kind of as a consultant for Awaken City as well. So she is a worship leader for us often, and then she also is kind of a consultant for the Deep Roots ministry that we're continuing to expand. But super proud of Kingswood. I also have had the privilege of being a teacher for the church planting class at Kingswood.
Oh, awesome,
and
yeah.
I have loved the students there. I just was telling Dr. Starks and Dr. Lennox that I'm super impressed with the depth of the students at Kingswood. I just love seeing their hunger for God, and it's real, and I believe God is using your students to be great movement makers in the world.
That's really good to hear.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm a beneficiary too. My dearest sisters in ministry are from Kingswood grads, so I'm indebted.
Yeah, well, God bless you in your ministry, and thanks for taking the time to just stop by and chat today. So.
Awesome, great.
All right,
God bless Kingswood.
Yeah, who you are and what you do.
Hello,
and
my
then
name
we'll
is
kinda
Austin Bonds. I'm with Metro Relief. We are a organization that helps the homeless. We go out on the streets weekly, and we're daily, and we're trying to help people get off the street. That's the main thing we do.
And where's this at? Where's the location?
We're in Dallas.
In Dallas, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, and I first met you a few years ago in New York when you were doing the same
Yeah.
kind of thing there. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome to see you, Mike.
Yeah.
But yes, I knew your face as soon as I saw you, and your name as well.
Yeah.
And because you used to bring teams down twice a year.
yeah, 2 or 3 times a year sometimes.
that's pretty cool.
So it's cool that you're still doing that. So do you want to just kind of like what are the challenges right now with doing that kind of ministry?
One of the hardest things is the public perception. I mean, homelessness is a real problem, and there are some real solutions. But if you watch the news, it's becoming more and more dark. I mean, if you pay attention to any kind of homelessness on the West Coast, it's really dark.
Yeah.
And homelessness isn't a respecter of persons. It's a very, I've met professors, doctors, lawyers. I've met ex-professional NBA players that are on the street, and so it's no respecter of persons, and it has a way of bringing you way down. So yeah, I mean, some of the challenges we're facing is just public perception.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to get. I mean, half of the public, it seems like, already has an opinion about homelessness, and they don't want to help
Right.
because they're like, they could do it, they could figure it out. You
Right.
know, there's homeless shelters, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Can you tell us a success story of something like some person where you saw God really like turn them around?
Yeah. Well, Mike, there's a little philosophy in this. We're like the Good Samaritan.
Right.
We don't talk about salvation the first thing we see you, because everyone else is already. One of the things we do is we try to, show you that we're going to give to you. And there was a lady, her name's Liz. We never met her at the bus, which is how we usually do ministry. We got a phone call, said this lady's sleeping behind the convenience store. Are you willing to go help? There was a local police jurisdiction that we work with. So we went, and when we met her, she's very defiant, very mean, and used a lot of 4-letter words, and she was blind. She had trauma-induced blindness. So she was hit over the head, and it caused her to be blind, and she was a meth addict. And she never went to a shelter because shelters aren't designed for blind people, or she tried. And so we said, I think we need to help you. It was the first person I ever put in a hotel, and we put her in a hotel. And the first week was hard, but the second month was harder. I mean, the first week was hard to say, I'm going to put this $350 down so you can get into this hotel. second month. By the second month, she had accepted the Lord. She was going to church regularly. We were helping her. Now she couldn't. Her heart was ripped in half because of a car accident from being blind. She tried to navigate the streets being homeless and blind. Got hit by a car, ripped her heart in half. So she couldn't get surgery because her heart wasn't good. So we helped her go to the doc, get her heart repaired. She had a pacemaker put in. She started getting surgery on her eyes and now she has her sight back. I mean, she's a blessing. She's a blessing to me. But we had to really put a lot of effort.
Right.
And
Yeah, not a quick fix, right?
And it wasn't, the salvation story didn't work.
Right.
It really didn't. It was Beth Moore.
Okay.
Beth Moore on TV.
Hey, God works in mysterious ways.
I mean, yeah. And she was mad because
Right.
we had a little internal staff prayer retreat. And she's like, well, fine. If you guys are going to go on a staff prayer retreat without me, I'm going to go on my own. So she just watched Beth Moore, and she spoke to her, and she accepted the Lord.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Well, God bless you in your ministry, bro, and thanks for stopping by and
Yeah.
sharing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good
All
to be back in touch with you, bro.
Yeah. All right.
All right, Eddie Shigley. How are we doing?
Yes, good. Doing great. How are you, Mike?
Good. So, just give us a little background, like where you, where are you working? What's your role?
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of back up from
Yeah,
there.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm the current director at Indiana Wesleyan University. And so that's a special program where a student can come to Indiana Wesleyan University and then get 2 degrees in 5 years. So
Okay,
they get their
wow.
undergrad and their MDiv in 5 years. So it's accelerated. They have to get after it. They're typically going to school year round to make that happen, unless they're coming to college with a lot of credits.
Right.
So that's awesome because you and I get to basically invest into future pastors,
Yeah,
We
and
get
it's
to come-
really cool. And you never know who's gonna shine. Like you look
Yeah.
at 10 years late, 10 years
Yeah.
out, you look and you're like, wow.
Yeah, sometimes you're surprised.
Yeah, and it could go in both directions.
In both
Sometimes You're
directions.
surprised, like, oh no, but but
Exactly.
other times it's great.
Yeah, but what a privilege we have, both of us have in this idea, is that we are preparing people for the church.
Yeah.
And, that can be a daunting task,
Yeah.
And
then at an event like this at the gathering, like I'm running into students from the 80s,
Yes.
90s, 2000,
Yes.
and
former students,
Yeah.
seeing them shine, seeing them here, and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just kind of backing up from there, you were quite involved in the youth movement in
Yeah.
Wesleyan Church and
Right.
A lot of different roles kind of along the way there. So if you had anything, like any advice for like somebody who's like kind of facing college, maybe feeling a call to ministry right now,
Yeah.
like somebody in that category, you just had any piece of advice for them, what would it be?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if they're a high school student, I would tell them, hey, go get involved in your local church in serving in some capacity. Like grab one of the pastors and say, will you mentor me and help me be exposed to ministry, whatever context that might be inside the church. But start serving, start working on your craft and developing some ministry skills. And if it's a college student, one of the things I'm sure you do and we do too is like, are you serving in the local church right now?
Right.
This is not a future calling. This is a calling right here, right now. And so are you serving in some capacity?
Yeah,
we're
because a lot
totally
of times our
learning.
head gets ahead of our experience.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you can keep those things running parallel,
Yeah,
you're going to have a much healthier
right.
kind of view of God and yourself and
Yeah.
the world. It's just going to be a lot more balanced.
Well, I always felt like you are one of the, in terms of the Wesleyan denominational, you are one of the unbelievable practitioners of ministry. You love to get people into environments to do ministry and to serve. And I think people grow in those kinds of experiences. And sometimes, and this is not a bad thing, sometimes they come back to me and go, oh, Eddie, this isn't for me.
Right.
I need to go do something else.
Which is a good thing to discover too,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
and I'm glad they discover that
Yeah.
now
Rather than
and not
later, yeah.
later. And they can have a different niche in the church, but it may not be as full-time, occupation, be a pastor type of a thing. So
and it takes a while to figure that out.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think more so than ever. I think sometimes we like take 18-year-olds and go like, what you're going to be a specialist. What's and they have
Yeah.
no life
That-
experience to measure
None.
with. And,
Yeah.
it's better to start out really broad and then let God narrow
Yeah.
the calling for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think one of the tasks we have in the education process is the people we get in college to study ministry, their growth is all over the map. You get that 18-year-old who went to camp in July because they're chasing after some guy or some girl, right? And they get saved on a Monday night. They get called into ministry on Thursday night. They were going to go to some state college,
Right.
and then they end up, at Kingswood or Indiana Wesleyan, and they've only been a Christian for like a month. And
Right.
I'm going into ministry. I don't know what that is. I don't know
Right.
what that looks
I have
like.
no
but
clue what
I have
that
no
is.
clue.
Yeah.
They've never read through the Bible. They
Right. have,
zero knowledge of Scripture, basically.
Right.
And that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what a fun task that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for taking the time to
You
chat
bet.
today.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
You're one of my heroes, Mike.
Oh, no,
Yes.
no, you are.
So, Justin Bradbury, and I'm the regional director for Western Canada now, so covering all of the Western Canada provinces for the Wesleyan Church. Focus on raising up resident pastors to go plant micro churches or church plants, and also working with our current congregations in the West. And my wife Angie and I also pastor our Calgary church. And I'm an instructor for Kingswood Extended.
Yeah. You're part of the Kingswood team here.
That's right,
So
absolutely.
yeah. And so, what are the biggest challenges you face in Western Canada right now? Would you say, like in terms of church planning and those
Well,
kind of
there's
things?
two challenges we've identified. One is isolation. So we've all come through the experience of COVID and the increased sense of isolation people feel from one another, and especially as we see it from church. So increasing numbers of people not connected to any kind of faith community. And with that, many who sort of deconstruct their faith do so quite privately, and there's this sort of quiet walking away that we see with a lot of people. The other challenge is how sparsely populated we are as a denomination in Western Canada. We're spread out from each other. We don't have a lot of churches. So that's two big challenges that we see we want to address, is that sense of isolation and also how thinly populated we are
Right.
in the West. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if there was any advice you could give to like a young person considering ministry, like what would you say to them?
Well, first of all, I would say come join us in Calgary, where we've launched a resident pastor program, and we're creating a network right in and around the city of Calgary to launch 3 more churches in the coming years. So an opportunity not just to be on your own somewhere and disconnected, but connected into a sort of a hub of activity and learning and fellowship while launching out to try mission and church planting in and around the Calgary area. I think number 2, I would say it's always been true, but never less so than now, how deeply we need to be formed in our walk with Jesus Christ, that He needs to fill us and define our lives and who we are. And then number 3, I would just say good friends and allies for the journey, because there's lots of wonderful things about ministry, and there's lots of challenges too.
Right.
But Jesus and community is what makes the difference.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for taking the time to chat today.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Brent Dongel.
Hey, Mike McNeil, I'm sitting.
I miss you, man. I
miss
miss
you
you having
too.
you upstairs there in the office building.
Just having some noise, some loudness happening.
Hey, we got some.
I miss looking at your
fans right
traveling schedule on your door. Like you somehow managed
Oh, yeah, I
to
used
do
to put it-
ministry to travel
here.
schedule.
Just to put it on my door. didn't
Yeah,
I?
well, it was like
That must have
summertime,
been pretty-
and
yeah, right.
I might be going to like 1 or 2 camps here and there, and it's like Mike's going around the world. It's like you bought a around the world ticket of ministry each summer.
Man, I wish
or
I could
break.
afford an around the world ticket.
Right?
So let's talk about tell everybody who you are, what you do, and we'll
yeah.
kind of talk about youth ministry.
Brent
a little bit,
Dongel,
yeah.
and I taught at Kingswood for 5 years. Love it. I still have a heart for Kingswood and what you guys do up there. And then also teach at Southern Wesleyan University now, teaching youth and children's ministry as well.
You're like the youth guru down there.
Hey,
right?
I don't.
The next gen guru.
Oh man, youth guru. Well, yeah, I enjoy what I do. Some people can do it for life. We'll
Right.
see. I hope I get to there. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Yeah.
Well, I think you have that spirit. for sure,
Youthfulness.
yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah. I call it the gift of arrested development. That's
Ooh.
what I like. It's arrested development is okay if it works for you.
You know what?
I get you.
Actually, one of our alumni, Nick, his son's name is Maverick. Like
Yeah.
I at one point at Kingston, I wanted people to call me Maverick because it's
Oh,
someone
yeah.
that goes a
Do you
little
know
bit.
what? I have a student right now whose actual real name is Maverick.
Maverick!
Yeah, and what a cool name, right?
Because
Yeah.
it's someone that just doesn't go completely with the norm.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's what you're talking about, the Arrested Development. We're like, we can go with the norm
Right.
and start to get older, or we can say, I think I still want to jump off an elephant in Thailand. You know, like that's something you would do, you know, or it's random things, you know?
So where do you see like youth ministry these days? Like how has it changed, and where do you see it heading?
You know, oh man, youth ministry. That's the crazy part. I mean, in one way, it'll always keep changing, right? Like,
Right.
you know just as much about me. Like, you've been speaking at camps, and so you've gotten to watch the college students in the youth world change a lot. Technology, screen-wise, it will change. And so it will be interesting how much do we engage more in screens versus how much do we, still know that the
Yeah,
personal
because there's kind of a
relationship
movement back towards analog church. Too,
Yeah,
like, where it's just
yeah.
like people just kind of going totally in the other direction.
Yeah, you know what? One of the ways I see screens, it's Fuller kind of said that screens are kind of like, it's like if there's a lunchroom that kids go to for school, it's like there's another lunchroom happening online at the same time.
Right.
And so they almost feel like I almost feel like there's a double pressure. There's a pressure to fit in person and online. If you feel left out in person, you can also feel left out online or vice
Yeah.
versa. So like, I feel like it almost just enhances team problems we already know.
Oh yeah, and even with something like bullying, like if you used to be bullied, you could go home and that would be a safe space, and it's like I can relax, and the
Yeah,
bullying's not
yeah,
gonna.
yeah.
It only happens at school, but now it happens online as well
Yes.
as in person.
So I feel like you can't escape it. So
Right.
with the increased anxiety, depression, whether it's actually teens are more or whether they're just verbalizing it more, I think it's both. But like, I think I think they just can't escape some of the problems anymore. It's just always there.
Yeah.
So and then there is like an ongoing need for mentoring, coaching. How do you have students learn how to have a heart? And actually, I think integrity definition changed. So like, I don't think it changed. But I remember, I don't know if you heard this growing
There's
up.
a lot of definitions changing.
Yeah.
lately,
So
no?
integrity. But integrity was. I remember one preacher saying it's who you are when nobody's looking.
Right.
But I feel like online it's now like who are you when everybody's looking.
Okay, yeah.
And do those match? You know what I mean?
Right,
Like so,
right.
not everyone was a celebrity in the past, but now it's like we almost disassociate. Oh well, I'm just doing that online as though it's not me, and we can almost have a hypocritical attitude. Like I do this online, but this is me outside of that.
Right.
And we almost, even though who we are online is affecting people, it's a part of us. It's not completely absent of us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
so I
think a lot of people are like, we've created this culture where people are celebrities in their own mind, and so we shouldn't be surprised that all of the issues that celebrities used to struggle with, now
Everyone's
struggles
struggling
with,
with.
right?
Yeah,
Because we're all creating this image, and then that may not match who we really are on the inside, which creates this inner conflict, and we get all these other things that like spill out of that, right? So.
You know, one of the things that you have had a gift for is even when things were complex, you tend to come up with like concise, simple answers. So
Well, yes, I've been known as to be a simplistic thinker, that's for sure.
one of yours was, you know, if something tends to be good, I tend to see God in it.
Yeah.
If something's bad,
Sorry, my main theological point is God good, devil bad.
devil
That's
bad.
a regular-
That's a regular. It clears up a lot of issues though between there.
Hey man, thanks for taking the time to come and chat today.
For sure,
Yeah,
Mike.
all
You're
right.
awesome. I appreciate
All right.
you so much.
All right, appreciate you too. We're good. I'll edit it. Okay. Because we're not live or anything. So.
We're live on this camera.
So we're here at the gathering here with this is Mick Veach. Mick, why don't you tell us where you pastor, what you're doing now, and
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
I am lead pastor at Kentwood Community Church in Kentwood, Michigan, just outside of Grand Rapids. So,
yeah, and what's your kind of connection or history, I guess, with Kingswood?
Well, you already know this, Mike. I've been engaged with Kingswood probably 25 plus years, mainly the early days speaking at your chapels and your spiritual emphasis weeks, calling people to global missions for many years. And then from there, I became a part of the board of trustees for many, many years. And then thirdly, my daughter was a student at Kingswood. So I had many, many years engaged with the university.
Yeah, and I think probably out of everything, when we send our kids places, that's kind of our stamp of approval, right? And so we appreciate the long connection that you've had with Kingswood. So if there's anybody like that's going to watch this, that's a young person that's kind of considering ministry, like why would they choose Kingswood?
Well, I would encourage anyone that's thinking about preparing for ministry. Why Kingswood is because it is a university that will challenge you, it will equip you, and it will force you to truly understand why you believe what you believe and to put it into practice and then to be accountable to other peers to go out and do ministry. Mike being one of those, that is a key element to putting to practice what we are learning in our intellectual and our heart and to be in the hands and feet of Jesus. That, in my estimation, is truly the heartbeat of Kingswood.
Thanks, Mick. I appreciate it.
All right.